So now that we're getting settled into the college football offseason, I think it's time we took a look around the nation. And this is something we did yesterday on the live stream where we went around and talked about some winners and losers from the offseason thus far, and it led to some really intriguing conversations, which led me to wanting to make this video right here. Ever since that conversation, I've been really thinking about who were my winners and losers of the offseason, and today I think we need to discuss it. Before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Do you still think we are in store for a ton of offseason action in terms of commitments and transfer portal moves? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions are massive to content creators such as myself in both getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And one of the things that is so much fun about this conversation, in my opinion, is how many different possible answers you could give me, both in terms of teams that have won the offseason and in terms of teams that have lost the offseason, and you would be absolutely correct. So inherently, there will be teams that I don't mention that you may believe have either won or lost the offseason, and if that's the case, drop them down in the comments, let me know, and we'll talk about it, because there are so many different possible answers, and I can't wait to jump into this. But because of that, let's start with the winners category. And in the winners, I want to quickly throw out some teams that have absolutely won the offseason before I really dive deep and hone in on three teams in particular. And to start it off, we have got to address some teams that have recruited at an insane level, starting off with the Alabama Crimson Tide, who signed 9 5-stars. And if you ask the Alabama fan base, they are as excited about this class as any class in recent memory. And whenever we dive into it, it makes complete sense. 9 5-stars is impressive, but 24 of the 28 prospects are top 300 players per 24/7 Sports composite. What's more is the 4 that aren't top 300, one of them is a special teamer, one of them sits just outside of top 300 range and was a riser in the class of 2023 and is a very, very talented individual, and the other 2 weren't eligible for those rankings because they were JUCO players. But fear not, Alabama fans, you got the number 1 JUCO player in the nation and the number 2 JUCO player in the nation. So this is a class I think Alabama fans everywhere are very excited about, and deservedly so. Another class that the fan base has got to be over the moon about is the Georgia Bulldogs, who are coming off of back-to-back national championships and come in as the number 2 recruiting class in the nation. And what Kirby Smart continues to do on the recruiting trail is impressive, and it makes absolute sense whenever we see Georgia performing at such a consistent level. This is going to be a fun offseason for the Georgia Bulldogs fan base, and I can't wait to see what they put together in the 2023 season. Another team we have got to talk about that recruited at an elite level is the Texas Longhorns, and especially when we look at how they recruited to needs. Whenever the summer was around and I was talking about the Texas recruiting class, there was still a long ways to go, but one of the things Texas fans and I were talking about was the biggest needs in that class. An inside linebacker was my pick. How do you go about addressing the need at inside linebacker? Well, the Texas Longhorns just went and signed the number 1 inside linebacker in the nation, Anthony Hill. They're losing Bijan Robinson, who is a special talent at the running back position. He really meant a lot to that offseason. What do you do for that? Well, you already have some very talented running backs in that room, but you go out and sign a 5-star running back, Cedric Baxter. The way this Texas staff continues to recruit is impressive. Former Texas staffs would just recruit a collection of talent. This staff recruits a football team, and they recruit to needs. And this is a big year for the Texas Longhorns. I can't wait to see what they do. And the last team I'm going to throw out before we really dive deep into 3 teams in particular, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And really, this one is very simple. They get a new coach in there. The fan base is very excited. And whenever we look at some of their additions in the transfer portal, I think there are some names they have that are flying under the radar that could be in for really big seasons for the Cornhuskers. I can't wait to see what they put together, and hopefully they're able to turn it around. But now, let's really hone in on the 3 teams. And first and foremost, nobody's going to be surprised about this. If you watched the live stream last night, we actually disqualified this team from the running because it was too easy, and it was just the cop-out answer, and that's Colorado. And the reason why I say it's too easy, look at what they have done. This is a team that won 1 football game next year. And ever since then, when we look at the collection of talent Coach Prime has been able to assemble in such a short time, it is very impressive. In fact, if we just look at this, already Coach Prime signed in this recruiting class the 3rd best recruit in Colorado Buffalo's history, Kermani McLean. And what's more, Travis Hunter would come firmly in on this list had he signed him to Colorado out of high school. But even if we take Travis Hunter's transfer portal rank, which is a 9990 as opposed to a 9999, he still comes in as a top 4 player in Colorado's history. So, this was a big year for the Colorado Buffaloes. This year is going to do a lot in turning around their futures. And it's not just about the 2 5-stars they got. We can look at the recruiting class where they got some huge wins. One of the guys I've really been interested in seeing, and I'm really excited to see what they do at the next level, is Dylan Edwards, because this dude is speed personified. And there were several institutions across the nation that really wanted this young man. We're talking about Notre Dame. We're talking about Oklahoma. There were a lot of suitors for him, and deservedly so. He is a very gifted young man, and I think he's going to really fit into this Sean Lewis offense, and especially when we look at some of the other pieces they have in that running back room, that's going to be a unit I'm looking forward to. But whenever we look at this holistically, Colorado is a team that added in all of this talent, but it's not just the players. Look at the coaching staff they added in. Obviously, Coach Prime is the one that's going to get the lion's share of attention, and deservedly so, but look at the people he surrounded himself with. Charles Kelly is the defensive coordinator who was just recognized by 24/7 Sports as the National Recruiter of the Year for his efforts both with the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Colorado Buffaloes, and this is something we talked about before that award was ever given. I directed all of your attention to the 24/7 Sports recruiter rankings, and Charles Kelly came in as the #1 recruiter in the nation. That guy right there really can recruit at an elite level. Well, you get him in as your defensive coordinator. What's more, you bring your defensive coordinator from Jackson State with you, and that's something we've talked about at length, that was a defense at Jackson State that was stingy personified. Then you get a Nick Williams, someone I'm very excited about. Then you get a Sean Lewis as your offensive coordinator, a former head coach who chose to take an offensive coordinator role and is known for a dangerous offense. Then you get Zimmer. I mean, we can go for a while and really dissect this coaching staff, something we're going to do here very shortly, but Colorado is absolutely a winner in the offseason, and there's still a lot of room for them to continue to grow. So, super intrigued to see what the Buffaloes do going forward. My #2 in the winners is the Oklahoma Sooners, because Oklahoma, once again, for the second straight year, is one of the few classes that can boast not only a top 10 recruiting ranking, but a top 10 ranking in transfer portal acquisitions. This is the second year Brent Venables has done this, and last year's was so impressive because he came in late and tried to salvage that Oklahoma class and did so successfully. But it left many people around the nation wondering, what are you going to do with the full year under your belt? What are you going to be able to do if you have a full season to be able to recruit these players? We saw what you did on a few days' notice. What happens when you get the full time? Well, we saw Oklahoma put together an incredibly impressive recruiting class filled with big-time needs. PJ Adebayor is a massive win for the Oklahoma Sooners because he is a 5-star defensive prospect. What's more, they get another 5-star defensive prospect in Peyton Bowen. And this is what Oklahoma fans have been waiting for. They have been waiting to see this defensive prowess and recruiting return to the Sooners, and that's something Brent Venables is going to try and bring back. Not only in terms of recruiting, but also in terms of the transfer portal, where Oklahoma got some huge wins, such as a Deshaun McCullough, who looks to come in and contribute really soon. But it's not just all relegated to the defensive side of the ball, because I think there were some Oklahoma fans that were kind of curious as to what the future would look like. You were coming from Lincoln Riley, where the entire focus of your whole team was offense. Then you go to Brent Venables, and you know that he's going to get that defense right, but you just got used to watching one of the most prolific offenses in college football work on a week-in, week-out basis. What's your offense going to look like? What's your offensive recruiting going to look like? One thing we know about Lincoln Riley, he's going to recruit the offensive side of the ball very well. What are you going to be able to do in his absence? Well, if you're the Oklahoma Sooners, the answer to that question is grabbing in another 5-star quarterback, Jackson Arnold, and whenever you look at the accolades this young man accrued during the course of his high school football career, it's many and it's impressive. He comes in as a top 10 player in the nation and is one of the most gifted players in all of high school football and plays in a really competitive league. So Brent Venables and the Oklahoma Sooners are answering questions. Now the only question left to answer is the on-field results. But one thing we need to do, we need to be very fair. Brent Venables in his first year as a head coach went 6-7, and while that's not what Oklahoma fans expected, He needs time to grow. We also need to acknowledge that there was a lot of roster turnover there that he had to deal with, and that cannot be easy for a first-year head coach. But one of the reasons why I find it so impressive that Oklahoma is recruiting at this level is because they're coming off of a 6-7 season. This isn't a team that looked like they were one game away from a potential playoff berth and national championship run. This was a team that had a losing record, and still, the excitement around them is this palpable. There's a reason for that, and I'm very excited to see what they do. So the Oklahoma Sooners are our second winner. For winner number 3, we're going to go to Florida State, and this one's very simple. Florida State has done very well under Mike Norvell this past season. Impressively so. I don't think anybody had that on their bingo board. And what's more, if you're a Florida State fan, you loved the fact that whenever you had a 5-star wide receiver committed to your class who Coach Prime tried to flip, he was steadfast in his commitment to Florida State. And that's big, because one thing we've come to realize, Coach Prime can flip anybody. If he gets a pitch in, you've got to worry. It is that real. For you to be able to retain that 5-star wide receiver and to retain some of the talent that you're excited about coming back, your quarterback, your running back, some of the defensive pieces, this Florida State team is absolutely a team we have got to watch going forward. I'm super excited to see what Norvell is going to be able to do this season because he blew away expectations from this previous season. What's more is when we look at the transfer portal acquisitions for Florida State, there's a lot of players you've got to be excited about. They did some work on the offensive line. They did some work on the defensive line. I think this is a group you have got to be looking forward to, and I can't wait to see what the ACC looks like next season. And now we need to get into our losers, and I have 2 for you today. First and foremost, we're going to start with Oklahoma State, because Oklahoma State lost a ton of production to the transfer portal. And one thing we've come to realize with the transfer portal, nobody is safe from it. The transfer portal will reach out and touch anybody in college football. This much is true. But the question is, what are you losing? If you're losing depth pieces to the transfer portal, well, that makes complete sense to me, even if that depth piece is a former blue chip 4-star or a 5-star guy. I look at that situation and I realize, yeah, they see an opportunity to go play elsewhere. That makes sense to me. I can understand that. No worries. But if you're losing starters, if you're losing production, well, that's where we have to sit up in our chair and ask the question, what in the world is going on? And for Oklahoma State, that's about the only question you can ask at this point. Because when we look at what they did in their recruiting class, they don't have the worst recruiting class in the Big 12, but it does come in as the second to last. And furthermore, if we just look at the average recruit rank, they would rank last in the Big 12 in terms of their recruiting class. If we look at what they're losing to the transfer portal, there are several teams across college football that are really happy with Oklahoma State right now, none of which are Oklahoma State. Teams such as USC got in major additions in the transfer portal at the expense of Oklahoma State. And when we really look at what's left at Oklahoma State, you have a lot of question marks. I understand Gundy has done more with less throughout his career, but this is going to be a big year because it's not like you have done what you've done every other season and you just continue chugging along with the talent you have. You're losing guys left, right, and center, guys that are big pieces to this team. And I think the cherry on top was Spencer Sanders deciding to transfer. But instead of going somewhere where he had the starting job locked up like he had at Oklahoma State, he goes to transfer to Ole Miss, where he's competing with Jackson Dart and the other transfer portal quarterback they just got. Oklahoma State is a team I can't wait to watch this year, but not for all the right reasons. I can't wait to see what Gundy does to try and put out this fire. I'm really interested. And finally, the last team on this list is Arkansas. And like Oklahoma State, they're losing guys to the transfer portal, but it's not just the effect of losing guys. It's losing guys with legitimate production. And for those of you sitting there wondering, why not Texas A&M over Arkansas? Didn't Texas A&M lose more people to the transfer portal? You're 100% right. Texas A&M did lose more people to the transfer portal. And the only reason they're not over Arkansas is because Texas A&M did not lose the production Arkansas lost. Yes, A&M lost a ton of guys to the portal, but a lot of those guys either saw very little game action or hadn't had the opportunity to see game action yet. So while you would have loved to retain those depth pieces, those losses aren't going to be felt the same as some of these losses for Arkansas. And when we look, the losses Arkansas is going to have to work through, it's palpable. Because it's not just guys who left to the transfer portal. You got to replace some big name pieces that are entering the NFL draft as well. Well, one of the things we talk about at length is if you have a secondary that's porous, if you have strong front seven play, that can alleviate some of the pressure off that secondary. When we look at Arkansas's front seven, Jordan Dominic is now headed to Colorado. Your inside linebackers aren't going to be there anymore. There's a lot of work for Arkansas to be done. And I want to get this across. I was real high on Arkansas coming into this season. In fact, if you asked me, Ty, what was your biggest misses going into the 2022 season, which actually, that might actually be a really fun video now that I think about it, I would have to put Arkansas near the top of that list for my biggest misses. I thought this was a team that would continue improving, and it looked like anything but. I'm super intrigued to see what the future of the Razorbacks looks like. Those are my winners and losers of the offseason. Like I said, there are so many possible answers to this. I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, give me your winners, give me your losers, and tell me why. Can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.